Hey everyone, we live in a world that is just full of stuff. Our phones, our clothes, the coffee cups we use every morning. But have you ever really stopped to think about what happens when we're done with it all? That's what we're diving into today, this huge, game-changing idea of how we can transform our entire throwaway culture into one that's actually built to last.
So, let's start with a really simple question. When you throw something away, where is away? I mean, it's a phrase we use every single day, but it's kind of a myth, right? Things don't just vanish. They have to go somewhere, and figuring that out is the first step to seeing if there's a better way.
All right, so to really get why a new system is so important, we have to understand the one we're living in right now. And for the most part, our modern world runs on a very simple and, as it turns out, a very wasteful idea.
It's called the linear economy. And honestly, the name says it all. It's a straight line, a one-way street with a very definite end. The model is brutally simple. Take, make, and then dispose.
Think about it like this. We take trees from a forest, make them into a paper cup, you use it for, 10 minutes to drink your coffee, and then you dispose of it. Boom. For that resource, for that cup, the journey is over. It's a dead end.
And the result of this one-way system? Well, it's exactly what you'd imagine. We end up with mountains of waste, pollution that harms our environment, and we're constantly draining our planet of resources that aren't infinite. The bottom line is, a system like this just isn't sustainable. It can't last forever.
Okay, so that's the problem. But what if we could take that straight line and bend it into a circle? That is the incredible idea behind the alternative, what many now call the circular solution.
And when you see them side by side, the difference is just staggering. Instead of that disposed dead end, the circular economy creates a loop. Products are designed from the very beginning to be reused, repaired, or recycled, to keep flowing back into the system instead of just becoming trash.
Really, the core idea of a circular economy is all about keeping value in play. Instead of taking the value of all those materials and literally burying it in a landfill, the goal is to keep that value cycling through the system for as long as humanly possible. It's about designing waste out of the picture from the get-go.
So how do we actually pull this off? Well, it's built on a foundation you've probably heard of, the classic 3 Rs. First, we reduce what we're using in the first place. Then, we reuse items as many times as we can. And finally, when something reaches the end of its life, we recycle its core materials to make something totally new.
But here's a really important detail. Not all recycling is the same. There's a big difference between upcycling and downcycling. Upcycling is when you turn waste into something of higher value, like taking old wooden pallets and making beautiful furniture. Downcycling is when you turn waste into something of lower quality, like turning a strong plastic bottle into a flimsy plastic bag. Both are better than a landfill, for sure, but upcycling is where the magic really happens.
So, remaking how we handle our materials is a massive step. But what about the energy it takes to run all those factories, to power the recycling, the reusing, all of it? A truly circular system has to run on clean fuel.
And that's exactly where renewable energy comes in. Instead of relying on fossil fuels that pollute and will eventually run out, we can power our world with sources that nature gives us for free every single day. The incredible power of the sun, the wind, our rivers, and even the heat from the earth itself. We can even get energy from organic waste.
And what's really cool is, for that tiny bit of waste that absolutely cannot be reused or recycled, there's still a better option than a landfill. It's a process called energy recovery. You can essentially convert that final waste into useful energy, squeezing out every last drop of value and keeping our landfills smaller.
Now, let's be real. Shifting our entire economy and our energy grid, these are gigantic projects. They're not going to happen by accident. They take incredibly careful planning and smart rules to make sure we're building in the right direction. And one of the most critical tools for doing this right is the Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA. You can think of it as a look-before-you-leap strategy for big projects. Before anyone builds a huge new factory or dam, an EIA forces them to study the potential impacts first, helping us catch and fix problems before they even begin. And here's a perfect real-world example of this in action. In Bangladesh, they categorize new industries based on their pollution risk. So a low-risk green industry gets a pretty straightforward review, but a high-risk red industry, like a chemical plant, that's going to get a much, much closer look. It's just a common-sense way to focus your efforts where they're needed most.
Now, I know a flowchart like this can look a little intimidating, but the core process is actually super logical. It basically moves from an initial check to see if a review is even necessary, all the way through detailed studies and public comments before anyone makes a final decision. The whole point is to make sure our big decisions are smart ones.
Okay, let's put all these pieces together now. We've talked about a whole new model for our economy, the clean energy we need to power it, and the smart planning tools to guide us. This isn't just a collection of nice ideas. This is a practical blueprint for building a genuinely sustainable future.
It all really boils down to this choice, doesn't it? We can have a system that harms the environment and uses up our natural resources. Or we can have a system that protects the environment and actually saves those resources for the future.
And this is the key takeaway, the most important thing to remember. These aren't separate things. A circular economy, renewable energy, and smart environmental planning, they're all deeply connected. They have to work together if we want to create real, lasting change.
So in the end, the linear model is a one-way street to, well, a dead end. It has a finite conclusion. But the circular model offers a path that can keep going, that can sustain us. The only question left for all of us is, are we ready to close the loop?